Работу парламентской сессии изменения климата, законодательные основы адаптационных мер в устойчивому развитию открывает модератор Губарев Виктор Николаевич, заместитель
The word is given to Gubarev Viktor Nikolaevich, and the chairman of the working group of Northern Forum of dear participants, friends. I would like to greet you on the second parliamentary session on this platform of the Northern Forum in the framework of the third Northern Forum of the Sustainable Development. The representatives of the government and governing bodies. The first parliament session looked into the legislative norms and acts that work on the Arctic territories, and it worked on last year on 27th of September, and it was decided to have a working group of the Interparliamentary Committee. So this suggestion was looked into, and the 14th the work group was established in the next session in Myanmar. The main theme is the change of the climate and preservation of the permafrost. Has already started working in our republic, and today is our theme is about the change of the climate and the legislative act that support this issues, and we will look into the issues about the climate change, and as well as the legislative acts of different regions of our region of Russia, and so we'll look into the wildfires, permafrost melting, and other issues. So in order to save you know that the things are getting worse, and they last 10 years, the global warming has been affecting, and it is quite rapid in the Arctic regions, and the mean temperature in Yakutia has increased to 210 centigrade, and so more than 11 million square kilometers is on the Arctic region, and the melting of the permafrost affects the territories, and it is also connected to the industrial development of the territories. So also we'll see regulatory acts into the wildfire legislatives, and probably we will see into the funds, and we will see into the how the global warming is affecting the development of the territories. And we will hear today the deputies of different levels and of the subjects of the Russian Federation, and there will be representatives of the UN and the Arctic Council, and universities, and etc. So you see how diverse is our session. So let me announce that this parliamentary session to be opened. Dear colleagues, let's start our work.
Предлагается следующий порядок работы. Сначала заслушаем выступления коллег-парламентариев и предложения экспертов.
We work, so listen to the parliamentaries and the expertise.
Прошу обратить внимание, что просьба придерживаться регламента выступления до 7 минут. Так как мы работаем посредством видеоконференц-связи, есть предложение работы.
And since we work online, there will be no breaks. I hope that you agree with this. Thank you very much. Let me give the floor to the chairman of the Iltamen, Alexei Ilyich.
Уважаемые участники парламентской сессии, от имени
государства of this parliamentary session, on behalf of the Iltamen, on behalf of the deputies of our republic, I would like to greet the participants. And this is the second session in the history of the Northern Forum. And the aim is to expand the dialogues between the representatives of the government and international entities and among the regions and countries, and it is aimed to the
Именно в Арктике и именно у нас в Якутии мы особо чувствуем, что у нас климат меняется. Только что Виктор Николаевич Губарев сказал вам, какие изменения у нас происходят в последние 50 лет.
Already heard from the previous reporter about the changes, and according to our data, there are so it is very rapid here in the Arctic regions. And the latest 50 years, in the last 50 years,
Подают о том, что в различных частях Арктики изменения достигают.
He said that they say that even up to 4 degrees, and if you take into the ice coverage, it was 7 million square kilometers. Now it is only 4 square kilometers. The next is the melting of the permafrost. So it used to be 65% of the territory of the country, but we witness
для расположенных в районах крайнего севера сооружений. Это дороги, нефтяные и газовые.
It is very dangerous for infrastructure, including houses and pipelines and etc. And according to the scientific data, in future we need to take acts on so that the regions of the Arctic will be prepared for these changes. And in our republic, there is a strategy of development strategy, and the main So we also aim to preserve the traditional way of life of the indigenous peoples of the Arctic, since they are the bearers of the knowledge of
формирование северного типа экономики, основанного на рациональном природопользовании. Ориентиром для создания эффективного правового механизма является экологическая доктрина.
So we have this so-called Ecological Doctrine of the Republic, and it was ratified in 2016. And the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia is interested to establish general ecological safety for the safety of the region and the health of the peoples of the Arctic. And the self-regulating nature of the Arctic should be preserved as well. And this should be today is the system of so we need to take account the geographic-economical features of the northern territories and the further development of so we need to have the responsibility taken by all the levels of the government, and we need to have
негативного воздействия на окружающую среду.
So we need to, in order to better the legislative that will tackle the changes of the
среду, использование возобновляемых природных ресурсов, рациональное природных ресурсов, вовлечение в хозяйственный оборот вторичных материальных энергетических ресурсов.
Should be a diverse things, and also we need to speak about the waste management, and we all need to give all our effort to tackle these questions so that we preserve our nature for the future generations, and the communication between the different levels of the government bodies and other entities is vital, and I wish all the participants of this forum to work successfully
как на уровне субъектов Российской Федерации, так на уровне федерального законодательства.
So that we could be able to solve the questions that we have. Thank you.
Sakha-Якутия за вклад в развитие законодательства, парламентаризма и межпарламентских связей наградить нагрудным знаком за вклад в
There is a award
Sakha-Якутия
for the
Сергея Николаевича, президента Совета
is given to Haruchi Evgeny Nikolaevich, the president of the
Ямало-Ненецкого автономного округа с 2000 по
the
2000.
chairman of the association of the International Association of Reindeer Herders from Yamal region. To the Parliament of the Republic, the deputies and the veterans of the parliamentary activities, and for those who work who work in the territory of the Arctic, and dear colleagues, I am not the first time here, and I used to say that I visited Yakutia, but I haven't seen Yakutia per se, and I went to see the village, and it was really I'm very grateful to see and now I do have a right to say that I visited Yakutia, not only Yakutsk, and I know how the peoples of this wonderful land live, and how they form the law acts, and how they, especially taking into account this territory to be very vulnerable, and they support this Arctic civilization, and it is really, really commendable, because I used to be the chairman of the parliament in Yamal, and then I was the vice chairman, so that's why I know everything about the work, and my dissertation is connected with the law on the territories where indigenous peoples of the north reside, and I have closely observed the work of my colleagues in the Sakha Republic, and I have lots of friends, and we're always happy to see each other, and I couldn't actually. It is one of the most important things, and we know that every corner of the Arctic of our planet is very specific, and because every corner has its own specific features, because all the indigenous peoples that reside there, they come up with their own traditions and cultures, and hopefully they will continue reside in those territories, and I hope that we as parliamentaries will provide them with the mechanisms, law mechanisms for them to thrive, and if only we need to have, so we need to tackle all the issues that they have, and then only after that we will have the moral right to
прорабатывая, принимая законы, которые бы регулировали, в первую очередь способствовали жизнедеятельности коренного населения.
So we need to support the indigenous people's life on the Arctic regions, and it usually so traditional economics and traditional civilization is the main basis of the basis for the development, sustainable development of the Arctic. So we need to understand this really well. Russia used to be, or Soviet Union used to be a good example of the governance that would support the indigenous peoples, and they are the indigenous peoples are the bearers of the unique languages and rare languages, and they have their own culture, and also the ecological culture, and this is our task this is our task and the basis for our program for development of this tool. So it's in Yakutia, in Scandinavia, Yamal or Murmansk. So I think that everybody who is present here, who came to discuss this theme, and they understand very well, especially in the conditions of the warming of the planet, and you know, the indigenous peoples, they never conquered the nature. they always adapted themselves to these conditions, and they will survive, and they should be given equal rights on economical, cultural, social levels, and etc. So, you know, economical industries, oil or gas industries that come there, they of course do a lot of work and for the development of the government of the country. But not only, of course, it's everywhere. But you know, the time will come when they will leave the territory, and usually they come to the territories where we have where the indigenous peoples reside in a very compact. Of course, they pay taxes, and we all pay taxes, and we need to take part in the development of this territories, and we know how we use the budget, and but unfortunately these budget money funds are not enough to tackle the questions, the issues of social character, and of course those companies that come and mine the territories, they should take part in the social development of the territories. So these simple truths are quite understandable for everybody, and of course I could tell everybody a lot and go on and on, but I will just finish here, and I'm very grateful to our colleagues and to the deputies of the Republic of Sakha, those who I'm very grateful for your evaluation of my work, and high. And I'm not a deputy myself, but nonetheless, but I will help my friends deputies. Thank you very much. I serve Yamal, I serve Yakutia, I serve Russia. Thank you.
Dear Sergei Nikolaevich,
Нашей республики. Очень знаменательно, что она вручена в День государственности нашей республики. Здоровья, успехов, многоуважаемого патриота Арктики. Вас знают во всех уголках Арктики. Спасибо.
That's a special day of our republic. Everyone knows you all around the world, actually. So let us continue our work.
Государственная дума Федерального собрания Российской Федерации по региональной политике, проблемам Севера и Дальнего Востока в очередной раз избранного депутатом Государственной Думы по спискам КПРФ, по федеральному списку Николаю Михайловичу Харитонову, человеку, который очень много делает, руководя комитетом, и много вносит очень полезных, действенных мер, которые помогают нам улучшать жизнь людей. Слово предоставляется Николаю Михайловичу Харитонову. Пожалуйста, Николай Михайлович.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники, организаторы, гости Северного форума и нашей сессии. Особое приветствие Виктору Николаевичу, Алексею Ильичу и, безусловно, мои слова поздравления легендарному человеку Харичу Сергею Николаевичу. Позвольте мне в начале нашего разговора поприветствовать вас от имени нашего комитета, Комитета Государственной Думы по региональной Северный форум, ставший территорией конструктивного диалога. Он начинал свою работу в непростой для нас проводимой государственной региональной политики. Необходимо прежде всего отметить, что Российская
take care
Федерации
of quite
международные
well, and Russian
можно
Federation
констатировать, что Россия, являясь стороной рамочной конвенции ООН об изменении климата, страной, ратифицировавшей Киотский протокол, больше всех сократила выбросы называемых парниковых газов, так называемых. По сравнению с базовым 90-м годом это сокращение составило около 30%, а с учетом поглощающей способности лесов и вовсе наверняка наполовину. Напомню, что для выполнения заявленных обязательств в рамках Парижского соглашения Россия должна ограничить выбросы к 30
According to the Paris Agreement, Russia has to decrease its emissions by 17%, and everything that should be done, Russia is doing. In Russia, we already have legislative basis to combine two spheres of economy. We have also included infrastructure, safety, ecology, and other aspects. In the national projects, we have a big project which budget is more than 3 billion rubles. However, by the end of the work of the 7th Duma Committee on decreasing the emissions of the greenhouse gases, it's another important step taken by the international organizations. All the fractions voted for it. And to form the climatic regulations, they need to be formed, as well as the legislative basis to receive valid information on greenhouse emissions. It is very important that the law introduces another definition of greenhouses, of emissions, and the CO2 print. We are also building the vocabulary and glossary for such terms. For example, we have defined the numbers as well, the regulation numbers, to provide more support to the green projects of the Russian economy. I think I will not tell you any secrets, so to say, but it is very risky to conduct this project due to the bad conditions of the sites, because they may suffer and they may be damaged, harmed by the emissions. And as for other aspects and spheres of production, of paper production, plant production, and others, it is estimated that the number of losses can be estimated to 5 to 6 billion euros each year. I'd say that one more time that Russia is following strictly the requirements of the Paris Agreement. We should not forget that Russia is a major ecology donor. Our country holds more than 25 forest resources and water resources. However, they do not include the pure water. And to the final resolution of our session, I'd like to include that we should create joint methodics to estimate the gas emissions and greenhouse emissions. To create such methodics, we need to take into consideration the input abilities of ecosystems. In our climate, the print of the CO2 anyway will be higher. For example, when the thing is being transported from Moscow to Russia or from Germany to Moscow, we will have completely opposite results. And if we just summarize the total emission of things transported in Russia, it will be much higher than in Europe. And it is due to the large distances. And as you know, Yakutia has been suffering from forest fires this year, and the head of our fraction said that we need to improve the technical conditions of all services, especially when considered to firefighting, especially in Yakutia. As you know, because of the firefighters, we have very high greenhouse emissions, even higher. The numbers are higher than numbers from the greenhouses. And I would like to highlight one more time that the North and the Arctic is a platform, is an ability to create productive dialogue, and our agenda should not be used for unfair competitors. And my dear friends, I cannot keep that silent, but one scientist who's living in Krasnodarsky Krai nowadays sent me his documents twice. He told me about a small ice age, as if it is starting right now. And he mentions windstorms, floods, snowfalls, and he suggested to build a bridge from Chukotka to Alaska so that we would get water from the Pacific Ocean. And I sent this paper to another ministers, and next time when my other colleagues come here, I will share his ideas. One can laugh at them or just smile at them, but he said that the key thing is to but his key is to build connection between Chukotka and Alaska, 64-kilometer bridge, so that we could concentrate our strength there. So thank you very much. Have a productive work today. Thank you very much, Nikolai Mikhailovich. And now I would like to give the floor to Vasily Vladimir, Executive Director of the Northern Forum. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm very glad to be here at our parliamentary session. And of course, we are very thankful for your suggestions of the parliamentary people to create a specialized work group on interparliamentary cooperation inside the Northern Forum. Of course, the activity of the Northern Forum touches upon all the aspects of people's lives of the region. And that is what we've been missing, the legislative basis. We are working very close with the non-governmental organizations, with the indigenous people communities, with industrial companies and others. And we have added this missing key, and we have the whole picture now. And now we can speak about the global activity of our organization. Of course, no actions of federal agencies or local agencies, they cannot be made without legislative basis. And when we speak about the climate change and adaptive measures, and readapting it to a new economy by predicting the climate, of course, it all should be based on certain legislations. We need to introduce new laws, new decrees, and so on. And now you have mentioned that we already have built a certain terms, a certain glossary on legislative basis that will contribute to our further work. And of course, in the Arctic, the Conference of Arctic Parliamentaries has been operating for a while, where the deputies take part in, but it is very fragmented. From the most active participants, I'd like to say that maybe Nikolai was also was also a very active member when he was leading the Association of the Indigenous Peoples, and would like our voice to be heard on global scale. And when we say that the Arctic Council is a platform bringing and joining together the Arctic countries, it is important that we speak not only inside the Arctic regions, but we speak to the whole world and with the whole world, so that we could teach them and teach the people, to teach other countries how to live and how to mitigate the climate change. And it is I'm very happy to see that this international platform, the Northern Forum, is expanding each year, and the sustainable attention of the highest level organizations is on us. And our forum is included into the plan of the Russian government in the Arctic Council. And this year, it's one of the main major platforms. And all the Arctic countries and the Pacific region countries, they are all looking at us, they are participating in our work. For example, the ambassador of Japan visited us in person, and at 2 p.m. he has already participated in Russia to Japan dialogue. We are being watched online from all countries of the world, and everything that is said here or will be said here on the platforms of the forum will have a big impact. That is why I should not teach the parliamentary people. On other events, I usually say, you should think before you say something into the microphone, because everything you say will be heard and they will be include that into their programs. So, my dear colleagues, I wish you all the fruitful work on our parliamentary session. And it is very nice to see that the work group of our parliamentary cooperation is very active in its work and provides example on how to build the work, how to be systematic, and it helps us to work with other groups. So have a good luck with that, and thank you. And I would like to give the floor now to the head of the Khabarovsky Krai, Alexander Voronenko.
Добрый день, уважаемый Виктор Николаевич. Добрый день, Владимир Николаевич.
Good afternoon, dear Viktor Nikolaevich and Vladimir Nikolaevich, and dear participants of the Northern Forum of this interparliamentary session. On the behalf of the chairman of the Duma of Khabarovsk, Mrs. Gunova, to greet you and express our gratitude to be part of this platform and to take part in this session today. Unfortunately, due to sessions in Khabarovsk, Irina Valerievna can't take part, unfortunately. And the Khabarovsky Krai became the part of the in 2018, and it was the forum in 2017 in Arkhangelsk, and Khabarovsk hasn't been really active in the work of the Northern Forum, and I took part as the scientific researcher, and I used to lead the sector on scientific research, and I took part in 2019 and 2020, and my experience is that it shows that the official delegates, I think that we didn't really send delegates to take part in this forum. And I'm sure that with this media that we have organized now, and since that our
Сейчас можно
Duma is part of the
констатировать,
seventh
что
forum,
если по
then
данной
our
линии растет. Председатель Законодательной Думы принимал участие в работе
will
межпарламентского сессии.
increase. And we see it now, and the chairman took part in the work of the parliamentary session where
предпринимательской
they
активности
discussed
и
the
гарантии
problems
лицам, работающим в районах
stimulating the to work in the territory of the northern territories, and the Duma also took part in the
с
work
коллегами по
with the
предложению
small-scale
власти
businesses,
по
and
актуализации
we
районов
addressed
Крайнего Севера и
the
приравниваемых
federal bodies to actualize the territories in the northern areas. And despite the Arctic, the Khabarovsky Krai is not the part of the Arctic region. We do have the same kind of problems in our northern territories, and they don't have the
программы.
federal support that others have. And the Khabarovsky Krai can play a big role in the development of the sea route and to work on the logistics, development of the logistics. And since we have this support,
стать опорными точками развития регионов, что особенно актуально с учетом из АТР.
I can be really supportive. So we are for sustainable development, and
наук. Буквально на днях институтом опубликован
the Academy of Science of Russia, the branch of the Academy of Science of Russia, they published monographs, and I am one of the authors of these monographs that worked on this book, and we
климата и его влияние на
work on the results and the agenda that we speak about today about the change of the climate. It is actual for our cry as well, because we witness the changes in our territories as well, and we need to work on the adaptation of our entities, and we witness the degradation of water bodies and floods and other things, and you know that we have wildfires as well, and 240 hectares of forests were burnt this summer.
К конструктивному диалогу, готовы поделиться своим опытом, перенять опыт ваших субъектов международных.
They do share their experience, and
этой группы.
Thank you very much for including us in this group. Thank you. Let's continue our work, and let me give the floor to the
analysis of social and economic and agricultural development of the Arctic zone, and also determine the indicators of
Alexander Konstantinovich Akimov, our senator of
Alexander Akimov, please.
From the beginning, we developed.
We can't hear you now. Are you here? Okay, if during our session he joins us again, we'll give him the floor. But now let me give the floor to Anna Otke, member of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation from Chukotsk Okrug. Dear colleagues, dear Viktor Nikolaevich, I would like to thank the organizers of the parliamentary session of the Northern Sustainable Development Forum for opening our parliamentary session. And you did it in a very beautiful way by holding a whole ceremony by awarding Sergei Kharichu with such an honorable award, since Sergei Nikolaevich is not only a legend in the parliamentary of Russia, but he is also a true spiritual leader of indigenous peoples of Russia. So climatic changes, they touch upon all the regions of the country and countries of the world as well. Unfortunately, the negative impacts are very big and they increase every year. And the most dangerous climate change aspects are connected to natural hazards such as flooding, permafrost melting, droughts, cold waves, Pacific ocean water increasing, and others, including disease spreading by insects and birds and animals. And this year has shown the variations of climate changes from fires to floods. And taking into consideration that the world is facing complex risks, for example, pandemics, it is important to consider the problems connected with climate change on interdisciplinary way. For example, we need to create conditions to adapt people to the nature and to adapt economics as well. So the problem of administrative regulation is correlated with problems of developing programs of international politics and others. We need to think of how to provide and how to adjust social supporting programs of medical services and safety events, and how to avoid natural hazards. There are two main strategies of adjusting economics to the climate change. First is risk-oriented measures that allow mitigate the total number of risks for different territories. And the second way is to profit from such changes. In 2019, the government of Russia issued a decree that supported the plans on supporting adaptation due to climate changes by 2020. And on this level, they were defined different programs of how to conduct this project. And the second stage was dedicated to certain measures in different economic sectors, including agricultural and environment preservation, how the regional governments should adjust their politics to the changes by 2022. And the start of the new climatic era in politics is connected to the greenhouse gas emissions, which was introduced in the frameworks of the Paris agreements, climatic agreements. And it includes putting taxes. And the president by 2030 promised, and he will do that, he will increase the amount of greenhouse gases emissions. And all the companies and organizations connected to big numbers of greenhouse gases emissions, they will have to report on their numbers. They will have to adjust to the climatic changes and to these new restrictions. And thus we will be able to attract green investments. And we will create an informative basis for green economies, and we will create a new class of investment projects dedicated to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement that will allow us to build a new market connected to the CO2. And all of that will create certain prices on the Russian market. And unlike the European countries, this law does not put restrictions on business companies and business productive organizations. So the decrease of the CO2 should become a global goal, and we really need it, despite the fact that some sectors of economy are decreasing because the total effect of the negative climate change will have more negative effect on them. So the governmental organizations are facing very important task to build programs and to build plans on how to adjust the economy to these changes. Last year, Roskidro created a report, built a report related to climate change, and after the economic estimate of possible estimated numbers, including technical base and other aspects, and in the conditions of unpredicted climate, but when conducting such plans, it's more important to concentrate on the population and the people, and to control the risks as well. However, by consolidating only the governments, the scientific people, and the population, and by quickly reacting to all the changes, we will reach the positive results. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we continue our work. Anna has shared very certain suggestions which will be included into the resolution. And now let me give the floor to the chairman of the Standing Committee of the State Assembly, Iltumen, to Vladimir Prokopiev. His committee issued a decree on the permafrost together with Mikhail Zhelezniak. They wrote it, which was very important for our republic. So please, Vladimir Prokopiev.
Dear participants of this parliamentary session, dear Viktor Nikolaevich, as you remember, our republic has started in 2014 to come to the issues about the changes of the climate changes, and because our territory is on the permafrost, we see that this problem is being heard, and federal laws are being developed, and legislative acts and stuff, and the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, also taken to face his mention, and we can say that we have already started the work, and we see that some cryogenic processes are damaging the infrastructure on our territory, and any anthropogenic influence should be taken under control. We also need to take into account the issues about the industrial development of the territories, as well as the forest cutting industries. And because of that, the parliamentaries, they worked closely together with the Institute of Permafrost. In 2015, we passed our law, Republican law, on the preservation of nature, and also we have developed the law with the same name. And this project of the federal law was presented on different platforms, and we heard all the ideas from different expertise, and we still working on it. And the Ministry of Nature Resources, Alexander Kozlov, mentioned about the taking the base law of the Russian Federation. So now we see that the people are getting the right understanding of the issue, and the nature resources of the Russian Federation should be monitored, and we need to work on tackling the issues on permafrost melting and thawing. And when we speak about the question on the issues of managing the permafrost in the framework of the new legislatives, it is quite well, and so it should be mitigated on the level of the federal laws, and we should take federal laws, number of federal laws, because nowadays we don't have any laws on the federal level that would preserve the permafrost of our territories. So we should speak about the changes on the norms and rules, and especially constructing rules and norms. As a subject of the Russian Federation, the Republic has already mentioned about it, and the Republic have already passed the law, but unfortunately, without the support from the federal government, it is not really feasible to achieve good results. So if we take the federal law on this issue, it will mitigate the issues issues about the rational use of territories, and it will protect the nature and the other industrial projects and infrastructural projects, and it will be shown in the budget expenditures. So the next thing I want to pay attention to is about the international law, and we need to have this complex and work together with the countries that have the same kind of territories in the Arctic, and we are independent object that can and so taking into account that the Arctic region of the country is hosting the strategic objects and stuff, we need to speak about work on the anthropogenic influence on the ecosystem, and we need to make so, as you know, Russian Federation is one of the leaders in the world in producing the carbon CO2, and in future, in nearest future, the oil construction and in the continental shelf is increasing, is going to increase, and due to this, we need to come up with this specific regime of working on this, and we need to have the unified governmental programs that would tackle all these issues. And in 2018, Iltumen sent to the government of the Russian Federation to asking about looking into the doctrine of the ecological doctrine of the Russian Federation, because of the Arctic territories is not only in Russia, but also other countries have the Arctic territories. So we need to come up with the unified requirements that would be and we suggest to initiate this kind of suggestions so that we come up with the ecological memorandum of the Arctic zone, and that would be spread to all the Arctic regions of the world. So the last thing I want to mention is the forest, and you know that Russia is one of the countries with the most forests on its territory, and we also initiate. We want to initiate about the compensational. So we need to work on the preserving the resources, and we need to initiate the because the forest fund of the Russian Federation is one-fourth of the forest fund of the world, and you know that this is not a small thing. Thank you for your attention. Vladimir Mikhailovich, we will continue sharing the also would like to give the floor Lesniak Vladimir Mikhailovich, the director of the Institute of the Permafrost, the doctor of the geological sciences, and it is very interesting, and it's about the monitoring of the permafrost in the Republic of Sakha. So if I'm wrong, please correct me, please.
So I would like to greet all of the participants of the Northern Forum. This is a very important event for our Republic. So I like being on parliamentary sessions, and I'm very thankful to Vladimir Mikhailovich and to the parliamentary parliament that they had enough strength and enough competences to build such a legislative basis. Back then, when they just started discussing this decree, I thought they would create or write something. And it wasn't a secret for us that everything will be changing, that this basis will be changing, legislative basis. And that is why we need to learn how to live in such conditions. And today I would like to briefly talk about the monitoring. So on my slides, on my presentation, you can see that we have all discussed how much territory does the permafrost take, and that this is a special characteristics of the Arctic territories, that they have such grounds that form absolutely unique conditions for biodiversity and, of course, for sustainability of engineering constructions in the north. And seriously, as we say, the main peculiarity of this ground is ice. Ice forms all the environment. Ice forms everything where we build something, where we live, where plants grow, and of course, all the geodynamics of the territories. And we talked much about the climate changes. Yes, they are happening indeed. And I would like to remember that 5,000 years ago, we had another, 500 years ago, we had a completely different climate. The average temperatures were lower by 5 degrees. And here on this slide, you can see that the Russian average temperature has been changing, and it is increasing much faster than in other countries. And here on the left, you can see the Sahara Republic and how the average temperature has changed in the Republic from 1962 to 2020. And our land is one of the highest grants, and the Arctic zone has also very quick speed of climate change, of average temperature changes. And of course, the precipitation amount also changes. You all know that the permafrost is formed by the is formed by the dynamics of land and the grounds. And you can see how the dynamics, how it all changes. And you can see that the precipitation amount, of course, influences the permafrost. And how does the permafrost react to all the climate changes? And on the slides, you can see how the dynamics of average yearly temperature in the grounds changes. I need to say that all these changes and the ground temperature changes, they vary very much. And depending on the landscape temperature, depending on the region temperatures, for example, for the Far Eastern region, this temperature changes from 0.1 to 1.7 in 10 years. So such trends are very typical. And if we speak about different depth of temperature changes, you can also see it on the slide on the right. And how do we estimate the permafrost? It is the speed of how the permafrost reacts to everything that is happening on the ground. You can't say that nothing is happening in the permafrost. If the temperatures change, we all know that we have physicians, we all know all the physical laws that give us opportunity to take some measures. However, yes, here on the picture, you see that cryogenic processes. This is the permafrost thawing. And here is the deformation of buildings that are taking place now still, and they are real. We should not fight them, but we should take them into account. And no doubt that the permafrost is not the key factor of the Arctic, but we try to study it so that we would develop our northern regions, we would develop the life of the person, its animals, and so on. Of course, the permafrost region is a special area, and its success and its quality depends on climate and on the permafrost. In 2020, by the Ministry of the Far East, it initiated a project bringing together scientists from different regions so that we would analyze the condition of the permafrost, its tendencies, its social and economic aspects for Arctic and Russian regions. And taking this all into consideration, by 2050, the damage will be estimated to 5 to 7 billion rubles. And this is the average number of money. However, we estimated it together with all our colleagues. This will be the damage to the houses, to the buildings, to the infrastructure sites. And we have several numbers, several average numbers for different categories, and many say that it is malfunction of the buildings. However, it's not true, because you can, as you can see it from our government, there is a whole paper written about it. You can check it there. So here on the slide, you can see the structure of managing the monitoring. I think we need to create a separate structure or an agency, because when we speak about permafrost, it doesn't mean that Rosgidromet can solve this problem, because it controls the climate, but permafrost is not only about climate, but only about grounds. And if we speak about the anthropogenic territories, it is a completely other aspect. So other structures of monitoring, they all should be brought together, because if we assign this task to existing departments, they will not bring us positive results. And of course, to create such a structure, we need to create regional centers and permafrost stations that will receive and analyze the information that can be helpful. In this document, all the aspects are noticed. Not only that, you can't just choose random the sites to conduct research. So to conclude, what needs to be done? Why I came here? The suggested by Rosgidromet system of monitoring the permafrost cannot be the only solution, and it can only be a part of this big system that I have just mentioned. In our republic, we have a special system. We monitor, and we have our own time to do that, because all the Arctic regions and Russian Siberia and Western Siberia, they have different conditions, completely different conditions. However, here we have needed conditions to think of preventive measures, starting from Taimyr and to Chukotka. We need to use the scientific potential that we have to create an adequate system. We tried to pass the law on permafrost, and now we have it. And now Yakutia is the best suitable region to build such a system of monitoring, because on Chukotka, on Yamal, we don't have that many engineering sites and engineering companies that can help to accomplish this. And I think it is real to build such a system by 2023 if we start this year. This this is the program that was introduced to the Ministry of the Far Eastern Development. And here on this slide, you can see the towns and cities that could hold platforms to conduct monitoring. The second point is, of course, to create international scientific polygon and to build roads, high roads. And here on the maps, you can see different regions of the Republic, different conditions for engineering, for constructors, and so on. And by creating climatic schemes, we will be able to predict how to build proper roads, what to add into the roads, so that we could have long-term roads, because we all know that all the roads that were built lately, they show a huge problem connected to this. So, as I said, we have already started something. We have passed the law, and it is important for Russia. And then when we continue our work, it will be a completely different thing. So now on this level, we need to find partners and scientific institutions and scientific organizations who will help us to conduct this big system. And we need to get rid of so-called commercial secrets, which is a big problem when talking about the natural environment. And of course, we need to build legislative documents and improve methods and approaches to predict the climatic changes, to predict the weather and so on. So by creating this system of monitoring of the permafrost, it will be impossible to do all of that. So we really need it. Thank you very much. We will this suggestion has been spoken on different platforms of the Northern Forum, and we need to include it into our resolution. And now let me give the floor to Alexander Pilyasov, professor, the Doctor of Geography, General Director of Regional Consulting, author of numerous number of works in the Arctic. Alexander Pilyasov.
Dear colleagues, I am very pleased to I am very pleased with this previous report.
Проблема экологии полярных
to remind yourselves about the book about the permafrost and all the research
авторами этой замечательной книги, она есть в открытом доступе в интернете.
That were presented in that book were done on the polygons here in Yakutia. And these polygons provided with the knowledge about the Arctic nature, about the degradation.
Человеческая деградация мерзлоты. Сегодня мы видим эту проблему спустя...
And also the Arctic, especially degradation, is done because of the activities of human activities, and now we see the degradation of the permafrost in the scale of the worldwide views, and we can see the, for example, so the
Вот смотрите, Михаил Николаевич
point of view is totally changed since then, and Mikhail Mikhailovich told us precise figures, and from the point of view of the federal ministries, they say it's 5 trillion rubles, and the deputy minister of the development of the Far East, he was kind of close to this kind of thing, but we say that it is actually been accepted by the federal level and the federal government, and that's why we have the federal documents. And I see that when we come back to the idea of the federal law, when we developed it with Mr. Shtarov back then, you know, that we see that how it gives the Yakutia to come up with law 2.2, and because they already have developed all the, you know, all the issues related to this law. So, and today's environment is more is really well for that. And the ex-director of the institute, when he counted all the counted all the damage, he also spoke to all the scientists and permafrost scientists and stuff that that we so that we all actives we have all the actives that Russia has is also they are in the cities, but in other countries it's a different thing, because the damage on the other countries is because of the engineering constructions, but here in Russia we it's because of the cities. It's the you know, Norilsk, Vorkuta, Anadyr, Tiksi, and etc. So Russia is totally different from structure-wise, and the of course the structure of the damage is totally different as well. So we need to take account this.
Дети наши говорят, это троллинг для Якутии. Это троллинг, что уже видите, да, что уже тут Воркута выдвигает инициативы, что значит мы хотим быть первыми.
Coming up with the initiative, but you can see, but we know that in Yakutia we have the institute and we have the polygon that has been used from
пунктов, которые обозначил Михаил Николаевич.
And also 9 things, 9 items that have already mentioned. And for example, I would say Tiksi and others, because Tiksi is the biggest settlement in the Arctic area, because and other 8 items was that mentioned are smaller in scale, and Tiksi also is some kind
чиновников по 5 триллионов дает Якутии шанс снова вернуть
5 trillion rubles. So I think that Yakutia can come back to this idea of creating Tiksi as a science center in this
естественную его научную которая по жизни.
And it will be easy for you to resurrect this scientific aspect of Tiksi. So,
может быть, это не тот масштаб по размеру.
Probably Tiksi is smaller, but you know, it's more. But Tiksi is more talented, and it has quite a lot of
Мы делали карты.
pluses. So here you can see the infrastructure, transportation infrastructure in the Far East. So what is the main outcome? In the Arctic, the Asian part of the Arctic doesn't have a lot of big cities, and and Yakutia, because of that, is also like more some kind of a polygon provider. And during Soviet times, we used to study the landscapes, and you know, this Berg used to study landscapes, and it was you know, whole attitude of studying, and you can actually study the dynamics of the landscapes changing, and you have lots of quite a lot of territories without any settlements and stuff, and where you don't have and Yamal is a different thing, is a different territory, because it has a lot of and for example, you have this very you can actually measure how you can actually study how forest is changing because of the growing of the anthropogenic development, and you have very talented territory, and so here we have the data on the different cities. The main damage when we speak about the cities, especially when we speak about the degradation of the permafrost, and of course it's housing objects, as well as the infrastructure pipelines and stuff. And you know, in Norilsk, so we can say that because of the degradation of the permafrost is one of the thing, and the other thing is the fund, how many so there are two approaches on that, and my student is studying and researching this, and so you can actually count. So this is like first-hand statistics, and you see the evaluation of the degradation of the permafrost, and you can
Да, но это вот заключение. Значит, у нас
This is like conclusion to my report. So after the 2020, we didn't have really quite a lot of ideas, and the agency on the information support of the Arctic, they come up with this idea that we need to come up with these new standards of the Arctic cities. And
продукт, участвуют там градостроители и так далее. Понятно, что для Якутии только в отношении ТИКСи это актуально. Но просто знайте, что такой вот тренд по арктическим городам федеральный уровень признал, начал работы, и будет промежуточный результат в конце года получен. Спасибо.
Should come up with the first project developed this program, and we will come up with the result in half a year time. Thank you very much.
Passed away last month because of the COVID. We had a lot of plans, but unfortunately, I don't know what will happen next. So all these years were important for
Продолжаю дальше нашу работу дальше.
So let's continue our work. I'm so sorry for not keeping up with the time, but please be short, and 5 to 6 minutes only you have, and I would like to draw your attention to this fact. So we give the floor to Alexei Vasilyevich Chigorev, and the member of the
Alexei Tsigarev, member of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, please.
International event.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Let us fix the sound very quickly. Now we can see you, and I hope we'll hear you better. So, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the invitation to the parliamentary session on such an important topic as climate change. And I would like to assure you that the forum on the issues of the indigenous people is also paying a lot of attention to the climate change, especially to the participation of the indigenous peoples in the climatic agenda. So the permanent forum is one of the platform of the UN that was created to provide expertise on different issues. This permanent forum covers the following aspects, such as education, well-being, economics, and others. In April 2021, we held a conference on climate change, on deforestation, and participation of indigenous peoples in solving these problems. So the experts highlighted that the communities of the indigenous people are first to face the climate change influences. For example, due to forest fires that destroy the huge areas of land that is inhabited by animals that are eaten by the indigenous people, and they are not only eaten, but they use it for different sorts of practices. It all negatively affects the life of the indigenous people. And of course, these fires, they destroy their lands, they destroy their food, houses, and their lives. So this permanent forum on its last session recommended the climate change. No, it's reported that the climate change holds a big threat to lives of the indigenous people by deforestation, by urbanization of the agricultural sectors, which it all influences the ecosystem of the indigenous people. So the experts 5 years ago conducted a research to mitigate the climate change and to create technologies to sense the natural hazards. So the indigenous people can help, can contribute to creating such technologies. And this expertic point of view has also included national policy on mitigating the climate change. And of course, we need to take into account the opinion of the indigenous people while conducting all of it. So the current research is conducted by my colleague Hindo Amaro Ibrahim. This research is available on the website of our forum. So its key aspects are that indigenous people are not only those who keep dialogue and who should sit at the tables, but their knowledge, cultural knowledge, is a key in solving the global problems. So Hindo Ibrahim suggested the government to map the problems on municipal level and on a regional level, and that they would involve the indigenous people into introducing new policies and new programs. So it is very important that the indigenous people are involved into other economic aspects such as cultural heritage, tourism development, development. And another point that I'd like to mention is the activity of big infrastructural companies that was already mentioned by a previous speaker, that the plans on natural resources management, these plans are being hidden from local communities and from indigenous people because they are of a commercial secret. However, the members of the permanent forum do not agree with that. They don't want this information to be hidden from the indigenous peoples because it is very important that they provide them with the proper information, especially on the plans on forest and natural resource management, because this is a very crucial point of building a trustworthy relationship between indigenous people, the government, and industrial organization. And to conclude, I'd like to mention that the topic of plastic pollution that was mentioned during our last session of our forum, and I encouraged all the parties interested in the problem, including the governments and industrial companies, international organizations, to involve the indigenous people into discussions connected to waste disposal, waste processing, plastic disposal, and with degradation of the landscape and ecosystem. So such measures should also include traditional knowledge. And the last thing I'd like to mention is another research that I conducted with my colleagues, a research on representative organizations and model of self-organization. I mentioned this research because in the previous recommendations that I voiced, there is a sort of link to hearing the voices of indigenous people. However, the legitimate representatives of indigenous people are their communities, other organizations of their self-organization that are listed in here. And my dear colleagues, I'd like you to pay attention to this interesting competition that was held by the World Organization of Intellectual Property for the Youth of Indigenous People and local communities. The deadline to apply for this competition is January 2022. The main problem that this competition addresses is climate change, how it affects the communities, the biodiversity, the environment. So I encourage you to participate in this competition, to ask your students, maybe relatives, to participate in the competition. So maybe you could spread this among the youth of the indigenous people to take part in this photo competition to bring more attention to this serious problem. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues. Thank you, Alexey Vasilyevich. This was very interesting. And now I'd like to give the floor to Sergei Sizonenko, Deputy of the Legislative Assembly of the Krasnoyarsky Krai. He is with us online. Can you hear us? Okay, he's not with us yet. And moving on, now let me give the floor to Chernogradsky Vladimir, the Minister for the Arctic Development and Affairs of the North People of the Sakha Republic, please.
Dear Viktor Nikolaevich, Vladimir Mikhailовich, dear participants, I agree on behalf on this platform. All the reporters they said that it's 2 times faster in the Arctic regions as well, and of course we see directly the changes here, the degradation of the permafrost that affects the engineering systems, and of course it can the anthrax outbreak and some other infrastructure collapses can cause, and so when we speak about the social economic development of the Arctic up to 2025, the question about the climate change is one of the main questions, and it has a separate platform, and especially when we speak about the CO2 emission, and so today so these
имеют определенные ограничения, да их масштабного связанные они от погодных и географических условий. Бюджет республики ежегодно несет многомиллиардные расходы на субсидирование затрат коммунальных служб, на обеспечение населения, теплоэнергии. В рамках государственной задачи по масштабному освоению.
So among the governmental tasks in the Arctic, they are connected to industrial development of the Arctic regions that can actually harm the Arctic nature. That is why it is crucially important to develop renewable ecological energy resources in the region. And in the remote Arctic areas, we need to solve this problem of energy. We need to bring them energy and at the same time not to ruin their nature. And building energy stations and plants in the Arctic, this is unfortunately not profitable from the economic point of view. At the same time, these energy resources, they need to be eco-friendly at some point by allowing the local people pay less for the energy that they are paying now. So we need to maybe think on nuclear power stations that would be safe. For example, recently we've decided to build a small nuclear power plant in the Arctic, and a lot of attention being paid to that. We have estimated all the factors, all the risks, and the perspectives of building this plant would be more profitable. And the capacity of this station is going to start its work in several years. And this plant will provide energy not only to one region of the Arctic, but to several of them. And Russian organizations being leaders in using nuclear power, for example, Rosatom, they created the project of the station that fits into all the requirements of the Russian law on using the nuclear power. And this project allowed to decrease the prices for the energy twice in the Yansky region, and to improve the such atomic plants, they do not have harmful emissions, which is very in demand in the Arctic. Small nuclear plants will help the development of the industries in the region and will improve the quality of life of people. Nowadays, these nuclear technologies in Russia are already giving opportunities to develop the Northern Sea Road. And they also push forward the socio-economic development of the country. And we would like to suggest to the resolution a possibility to build small nuclear plants in the Arctic regions that will allow to improve the well-being of people living there, that will provide energy safety to lower the CO2 emissions, and of course to improve the industrial development in the Arctic. So I hope all the suggestions included into the resolution of this session will be the basis of introducing a new legislative basis for Arctic development of the Russian Federation. So I wish you fruitful work. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Vladimir Nikolaevich. Unfortunately, oh no, we have 4 speakers. And please pay attention that you need to speak no more than 3-4 minutes. Now let me give the floor to Vladimir Minoslavsky, Deputy Head of the Administration from Bolunsky Ulus.
Good afternoon, all the participants, and I will try to be short. And Tixi in Bolunsky is on the shores of the northern ocean, and we fully support the sustainable development ideas, and we need to work with the new technologies and stuff, and that's why we together with the Ministry of the Arctic and the administration of the Bolunsky region, we have developed the plan of development of Tixi to 2025, and it actually ranked the 2nd place in the Russian list, and now we are the finalists of another competition in St. Petersburg, and so in short, that we say that a person who lives in the Arctic is the main object of our plans, and it is. And we also want to preserve the ecology, and also we want to develop the region. And we are becoming a very interesting region, and from the investment point of view, because we have the seaport and we have the military bases, and we have already prepared the a plan to develop the touristic tourism in our territories, and nowadays we are preparing the airport line, so that we have the direct flights from Moscow, and we also work on the development of the scientific research centers, and we have signed some agreements with the scientific organizations in Yakutsk. Also, we pay attention to the development of the infrastructure of our settlement. We have done quite a lot of work in the last 4 years, and right now we are working on the development of our infrastructure, and we're building, we're doing the construction works, and but also we see how the melting of the melting of the permafrost affects on our work, and since we are responsible for the well-being of the people that reside here, so we you know that our municipal entity is a dotational unit, and it's like 72 to 86%, and unfortunately we cannot take part in the programs because we don't have funds, because of, and since and therefore we would like to we'd like to suggest to have this program as a pilot program, and to see how we can implement this program also in other regions with the same climate conditions. We also would like to say
и также проводить мониторинг совместно
new
с научными
technologies, and also we would like to do the monitoring, scientific monitoring of the territory, and we know that our data will be used in other regions as well, in the framework of the International Permafrost Forum. It will be issued, and we will test the seismic stability of the buildings in our settlement, and first of all, we will adapt and develop the technologies that to the changes of the permafrost here, and but we need support from the executive bodies of the government, and without legislative support, we won't be able to achieve all these all these ideas, and we would also
и провести пилотирование такой практики.
And also, we would like to have this pilot project in Dixie.
А также рассмотреть создание волонтерских.
And also, we would like to establish the volunteering activities, to start volunteering activities, and and as a mechanism, we suggest to have for volunteers to have diaries, and to know that the local people are totally they really well acquainted with the places where they reside, and they can see slightest changes that occur on this territory, and they can provide precise data because of that. And for example, we get some information from the locals about the new plants that are growing and stuff. So we would like to have these monitoring activities on and so in the territories that are not covered by the federal programs, probably we can have this volunteer monitoring, and it will bring us to the coverage of the whole territory of the region, and we will come up with the and then we would work closely together with the scientists to come up with the good result, good data. Thank you very much, and
и в резолюции, в работу. Сейчас у нас подключились все-таки, сумели
Suggestions are quite wonderful, and we
Анатольевич, депутат
are
законодательства,
waiting for Сезоненко
понимаю, да?
Сергей Анатольевич from Красноярский край.
Подключились они,
Am
да?
I right?
А?
Are they online?
Да, хорошо. Ну, мы еще раз обращаем внимание, 3-4 минуты каждому, кто вот
So please 3-4 minutes.
Пожалуйста.
So we have 3-4 people to report.
Сергей Анатольевич, мы слышим вас. Вот мы вас видим, теперь слышим. Давайте, пожалуйста, вам слово.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Пока не слышно.
We can't hear you well, Sergei Сезоненко. Please try to
Еще
change your microphone.
прибавишь, да, Николай? А вы нас слышите, да? Слышите нас? Если вы нас слышите, вот сейчас нет звука, да, мы обязательно вас, ваше выступление пришлете в оргкомитет сюда, и мы обязательно опубликуем и проинформируем, мы всех познакомим с проектом резолюции. Так, а? Слышно или нет? Ну давай. Ну давайте, хорошо, извиняемся, слушаем, пожалуйста.
Спасибо.
So, thank you. You know that indigenous people are the most fragile aspects of the Arctic. And according to the documents of strategic planning on ethnological analysis,
Со всеми вытекающими правовыми последствиями проводится только в Республике Саха-Якутия.
this expertise is being held only on the in the Sahara Republic based on the legislation. I have a longer speech, but I'll move on to my main key points. If we speak about Daimir, they do not have a certain legislative basis. It would give us more possibilities to conduct research, to give expertise and so on, to maybe predict different natural hazards. And at this point, the main goal of this expertise was to comply several models to hold one big, deep research. In Norilsk, we hold the expertise in 2 stages. You all know that in Taimyr and Norilsk, we had the biggest catastrophe in the Arctic and the river. And thanks to the results of experts from Yakutia, they helped us to build a certain mechanism. The first was on-field measure to estimate all the lands influenced with this pollution. And we gave more than 190 million million rubles to the indigenous people who suffered from this hazard. And people from the Sahara Republic, they have a big experience in holding such expertise. Such a methodology has a big coverage. And for example, people on Taimyr did not have to prove that they are indeed working and living on these areas. And thanks to the methodological created in Yakutia, Rosnikel made it possible to create a program to develop these areas. This program will be on by 2024 on preserving natural areas. The second stage was ethnographical, and its aim was to conduct deep ethnological analysis of the people living in Taimyr. In total, more than 10 academic centers participated in this research. The expertise on Taimyr showed us that we need to continue developing the institutions and ecological organizations on our territories that will help to improve agricultural aspects of lives and traditional way of life for the indigenous people. Another point is to create ethnological mapping of these territories where they would include the numbers of people, the number of the animals living there. And as a result, these data would help us to create a prediction of how to possibly mitigate or get rid of such catastrophes. So Krasnoyarsk and Taymyr takes 32% of the Arctic territory. And first of all, I would like to thank the government of the Sakha Republic. With their help, we made it possible to create this program and this expertise that gave us a lot of experience, and we made it possible to create mechanisms on how to cooperate with industrial organizations. And thanks to such forums that we are now, thanks to such platforms, we can exchange experience. And of course, we would like it all to be implemented on the federal level. And as you know, Yakutia is leading the world, and your experience and your knowledge helped us in Taymyr. Our territories share one board with Yakutia and with Yamal. And of course, one more time, I would like to thank all the people who were involved in creating these mechanisms. And we are always open for cooperation. And let's keep in touch. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sergey Anatolyevich. And now let me give the floor to Mikhail Pagadayev, Special Representative of the Russian Federation in the Arctic Council, please.
Виктор Николаевич, уважаемый Владимир Михайлович, уважаемые участники парламентской сессии.
Vladimir Zhirinovsky, dear participants of this parliamentary session, I would like to greet all the participants, and I am a special representative of the Arctic Chairmanship on the issues of the indigenous peoples, and I was nominated.
Николаева, и данное предложение было поддержано российским председательством в Арктическом совете. Но хотел бы кратко сказать о том, что это наших должностных лиц Арктического совета Николая Викторовича Горчунова
of the Arctic Council, and Anatoly Viktorovich Goncharov will be leading my work, and I will be working on not only in the Russian Federation, but also we will be reporting, preparing reports on the indigenous people's issues, but also I will be working on different activities during the chairmanship of the Russian Federation in the northern.
Здоровью коренных народов по креативным индустриям.
Developing new projects on medicine development, and also new project it will be implemented in the framework of the new work group on the sustainable development of the northern territories, and it is called the vitality of the northern communities, and it will be dedicated to the degradation of permafrost, and that's why, and because Yakutia is one of them, is the main scientific center on permafrost, since we have the Institute of Permafrost working on researching this, and Yakutia is the, and this project is already prepared, and we have already discussed this with Mikhail Mikhailovich from the Institute of Permafrost. And today's theme of our discussion is very keen, and we are looking into issues of the degradation of the permafrost, and many of the reporters have already mentioned about how the permafrost melting influences the lives of the indigenous peoples, and it's a big problem. And I'm not going to speak about it a lot, since a lot was said already. And I think that the development of the legislative norms should be done very quickly, and it should be preventing not only doing it behind it. And since we should be developing our laws and legislative norms, and of course we have lots of different platforms where we work, and we have a platform that will work that is dedicated to the legislative formations and stuff, and also the platform of the Northern Forum on the sustainable development gives the opportunity to the participants to share their expertise and
а также организации коренных народов, постоянных участников Арктического
the expertise from other countries as well, and those who are the different contemporary participants of the Northern Forum. And thank you very much for your work, and we will be working together in future as well. Thank you. So we have only two reports, and we will come up with conclusion. And I would like to give the floor to Людмила Yevlovskaya, Doctor of Deputy of the Iltman.
Good evening, dear invited guests, dear participants of this session. First of all, I would like to say that I was born in the Arctic region in Kolyma, and I spent my whole childhood there. It was the Soviet time, and now when I come back to my native land, I do not recognize the landscape of the Kolyma River at all. All of it brings a lot of worries to me, all the climate change, how it influences the quality of people's lives. And lately we have seen that the demographic situation in the north is getting worse, not only because of the inner migration, but people are living from the places to warm places. Specialists and experts are also migrating. That's why I have several suggestions. The sixth session of our parliament pays a lot of attention to the issues of ecology that were created over the decade. And this is one of the main bases in terms of fighting and for the rights of the indigenous people. And I'd like to say that I am very glad to see here on the session the representatives of the UN organizations that speak about the problems of the indigenous people, and taking into account the experience of the Sahara Republic in terms of preserving the rights of the indigenous people in terms of their ethnos. I'd like to say that it is time to look at this issue on the legislative status, and based on the definition as permanent and indigenous resident of the Arctic. Probably we will need to address to the scientific institutions and to the government in this regard. As for the main problems mentioned here today, such as natural resource management and forest fires, we all know that the people in tundra and in the Arctic are people of the nature. That's why they're being fed by the forest, by the rivers of the Arctic. And that's why I'd like to, with regard to the branches of the program of the Russian Federation, to include the following programs: Forests of the Arctic, Rivers of the Arctic, this is the working title, Healthcare of the Arctic, to think about the status of the Arctic doctor, despite the fact that we have some programs to compensate the young specialists from young doctors and into the northern regions of our countries. People do not stay there long because there is no proper infrastructure to stay there longer. That is why we need this program very much. Along with healthcare, I suggest to you to include the program Teacher of the Arctic. Taking into account the results of my work on my doctoral paper on predicting the diabetes among the people of the northern regions of the Republic, we have managed to see how the external environment changes the internal potential of our people. That is why it is important in terms of the state program to implement the following sub-program as food of the Arctic. And it will depend on the traditional ways of the Arctic that we have there. And as for the permafrost, we have already discussed the law of the permafrost. And of course, we need to take into account all these recommendations on introducing and implementing this legislative basis in the Russian Federation. And of course, as for the structure of the power of the Russia, we need to remember that human is the key point here, and he gives safety. He can provide in safety in such local global characteristics, and we need to create a model of interdisciplinary technological complex on healthcare, on the MNTK model, on neurosurgeries on ice that was suggested by one of my colleagues. This is a very sustainable model that proved that it is possible to be used in the regions and to introduce new technologies into the medicine. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have Chuprov Matvey. You have 3 minutes.
So, dear colleagues, I would like to greet on behalf of the deputies of the autonomous okrug, and we need to unite our efforts because we have geographical and cultural and economic background that we should together, and we concentrate our attention to the change of the climate and its additional. So we suggest to have this day of cult And it is actually, we have this kind of day in Donetsk autonomous okrug, and we have different activities during this day. It's a scientific, cultural, and other activities, and we work on we take quite different measures on defending the cold, and we suggest to have it on 29th of February, and we initiate this, would like to have this resolution to this day, and it will be it will help us to unite all the interested parties around this problem, around the preserving cold and related issues.
And yes, I forgot to introduce Matvey Chuprov, a Deputy Chairman, Assembly of Deputies, Nenets Autonomous Okrug, Chairman, Standing Committee, Assembly of Deputies, Affair of the Nenets People and Other Indigenous Minorities of the North. And now the speaker is repeating, introducing the previous speaker, because before he had problems with the microphone. So thank you very much, Matvey Mikhailovich. If no one insists, probably we should move on to conclusion. I hope no one is against it. In our session hall, we have already distributed the main points of our resolution to those who are in the room with us. And during the 10 days, you can send to us your suggestions. So yes, during 10 days, we need to bring together all these scientific papers, all the suggestions, and everything that was mentioned here today. And then we will create a project resolution, a draft resolution. We will send it out to everyone who is participating here. You know our email where you can send your requests and suggestions to. If you have some special remarks or special comments, please, I'll be happy to give you the floor. Or is this enough that we build a draft resolution and then we send the project, this draft to you? If no one minds it, then we accept it. So, my dearest friends, in several hours, we will have a plenary session on opening our conference, our session on sustainable development. We will also participate in other events over these upcoming 2 days. I would like to thank all of the participants of today's session for such a fruitful work, and let us consider this session on climate change of the Northern Forum Sustainable Development closed. If no one minds, yes, we will hold a round of applause.
Сколько же времени понадобилось, чтобы принять закон в одном из субъектов федерации? Какие-то некоторые моменты. Но я думаю, у нас дальше времени нет столько, значит, заниматься исследовательным наблюдением. нужны параллельно, вот здесь совершенно правильно подчеркнули, должна
And as it was mentioned today, over the 50 years, the average temperature has increased by 2 degrees. Unfortunately, we don't have much time to hold more research on this. And that's why we need to find another system, another interdisciplinary approach to solve this problem. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Recording stop.